My father stood on my porch with a lawyer while my coffee was still steaming in my hand. He didn't hug me. He didn't say good morning. He pointed at my little blue house and said, "This house is family investment property. We're exercising our claim." Then my mother, the woman who watched me work 2 jobs through college, nodded and said they had put $200,000 into it. They even had eviction papers. I remember smiling, not because it was funny, but because the drawer beside my desk held 11 years of proof and one number that would ruin them all. My name is Layla Harper. I was 34 years old, a data analyst in healthcare, and for the first time in my life, I had something no one in my family could touch, or at least, I thought I did. My house was small, painted soft blue, with white trim and a porch that creaked when it rained. Nothing about it screamed rich, but to me, it felt like a mansion. Every floorboard, every cabinet, every warm lamp in that living room had been paid for with overtime hours, skipped vacations, cheap dinners, and years of telling myself, just keep going. People used to say I was beautiful in that polished, quiet way. Long dark hair, sharp cheekbones, clothes always neat, makeup never heavy. My mother called it looking put together, like it was another obligation. Smile right, stand straight, don't make people uncomfortable. That was my role in the Harper family. Be easy. My brother Ethan was the one who got rescued. When he crashed a car, Dad handled it. When he changed majors 3 times, Mom said he was finding himself. When his first business burned through money, they called it courage. When I worked late shifts and studied until my eyes blurred, they said, "You've always been independent. That word sounds like praise until you realize it means. Don't expect anything." I bought my house in a quiet neighborhood in the city after years of saving. The purchase price was about $350,000. I put down about $70,000 from my own savings. The mortgage was in my name. The payments came from my account. The bills came to me. Not Richard Harper, not Diane Harper. Me. Still, I kept records. Payments, bills, bank records, old notes. Every amount my parents gave Ethan. Every small gift card they gave me. I told myself it was just habit, the way my brain worked with numbers. But deep down, I think I was building a wall before I even knew someone would try to break in. And on that Saturday morning, when my father stood on my porch and called my home family property, I finally understood why I had saved everything. The lawyer's name was Grant Mercer. He had silver hair, a smooth voice, and the kind of leather briefcase that made bad news look expensive. "Miss Harper," he said, "your parents retained me to discuss their ownership interest in this property." Ownership interest. The words landed on my porch like broken glass. "My parents don't own this house," I said. Dad stepped forward. Richard Harper always moved like the room belonged to him, even when the room was my front porch. "This house is family investment property," he said again. "We're exercising our claim." Mom stood behind him, clutching her purse with both hands. Diane Harper had always been good at looking wounded before anyone had hurt her. Grant opened the folder. I saw legal papers, a notice, a demand, language about residency rights, liquidation, and failure to cooperate. It was not just a conversation. It was a trap with signatures. My mouth went dry. "You brought eviction paperwork to my house?" I asked. Dad's jaw tightened. "Don't be dramatic." That was his favorite word for me whenever I noticed the knife in my back. Grant cleared his throat. "Your parents state they contributed substantially to the purchase. Approximately $200,000. I looked at my mother, not my father. My mother, because Dad could bulldoze a room and call it leadership, but Mom knew every quiet year I had survived. She knew I ate canned soup in my first apartment. She knew I sold my old jewelry to cover a medical bill. She knew I never asked them for the down payment. "Because you claim you funded the purchase?" I asked, for 1 second. Her eyes flicked away, then she nodded. "We put $200,000 into this house," she said softly. Like the lie hurt her more than it hurt me. Something inside me went still. Dad kept talking, saying Ethan was in trouble, saying the family needed liquidity, saying I had always been the stable one. the responsible one, the one who could handle things. There it was, the real reason. Not investment, not ownership. Ethan, my younger brother, had burned through another rescue, and this time, they had decided my home would be the life raft. I looked at the papers in Grant's hand. I looked at my parents standing in the morning sun like they were doing something painful but necessary, and I knew this was not a misunderstanding. It was a plan. So I stepped back from the doorway, not to cry, not to beg, but to get the truth. Inside my kitchen, the house sounded normal. The refrigerator hummed. A car rolled past outside. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked twice and stopped. My coffee sat on the table, still warm, with a thin line of steam curling into the air like nothing had happened, but my chest felt hollow. I stood there for a second with my hand flat against the counter, staring at the drawer beside my little work desk. That drawer held the years my family pretended never happened. I opened it. Payments, bills, bank records, mortgage papers, old notes written in my own careful handwriting. I had organized everything the way I organized data at work, by date, amount, and source. It was the one place in my life where the truth could not be talked over. The first page took me back to when I was 20. Ethan was 18, grinning across the dinner table while Dad announced they would cover his college, tuition, dorm, meal plan, even a car so he could focus on his future. Then Mom turned to me and said, "You understand." Right. You've always been so capable. Capable. That word followed me through 3 part-time jobs, late-night buses, discount groceries, and winter mornings when my coat was too thin, but I still walked to class because gas money mattered. Ethan got help. I got character. Over the years, I wrote it down because I needed proof I was not crazy. About $22,000 for Ethan's car, college, rent, wedding costs, business money, rescue after rescue, all together. About $440,000. For me, about $8,000 over more than a decade. Most of it small gifts. One medical loan of about $2,000 that I paid back, and now they were on my porch claiming they gave me $200,000. I picked up my phone and opened the mortgage records. Purchase price, about $350,000. Down payment, about $70,000. My savings, my income, my name. My hands were steady now. That scared me more than shaking would have, because I was not just hurt anymore. I was done. I took the folder, walked back to the front door, and saw all 3 of them waiting. Grant looked uncomfortable. Dad looked impatient. Mom looked like she was already rehearsing forgiveness for something she had not survived. Dad lifted his chin. "Ready to be reasonable?" he asked. I looked at the papers in his hand, then I opened my phone. "Actually," I said, "actually, bank records show I qualified a loan with my income." The porch went quiet. Not peaceful quiet, not morning quiet. The kind of quiet that falls after someone drops a glass and everyone waits to see how badly it shattered. I held out my phone to Grant Mercer. Purchase price was about $350,000. Down payment was about $70,000. That came from my savings account. The mortgage is in my name only. The bills are in my name. The payments came from my account. Grant took the phone slowly. My father's eyes narrowed. "Layla." I didn't look at him. For once. I kept my eyes on the person who could not be guilted by my last name. Grant scrolled. His face changed little by little. First, professional patience, then confusion, then that small, careful stillness people get when they realize they have been standing on the wrong side of a lie. "These are your mortgage records?" he asked. "Yes." "And the down payment mine? And your parents' contribution?" I looked at my father, then my mother. $0 from you." The words came out clean, not loud, not trembling, clean. Mom made a tiny sound, like I had slapped her instead of told the truth. Dad stepped closer. "That is not how family works." "No," I said, "that is exactly how money works." Grant looked from my phone to the papers in his folder. "Mr. Harper, you represented to me that you and your wife provided substantial funds toward the purchase." "We did," Dad snapped. "Over the years. Support. gifts, raising her. She would not have anything without us. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because I had spent my whole life waiting for him to say the quiet part out loud. I opened the folder in my arm. "This is what you gave me over the years," I said. "Payments, gifts, loans, bills, everything I could verify," Mom whispered. "Layla, don't do this on the porch. You brought eviction paperwork to my porch." Her face folded, but I kept going. Ethan's car, about $22,000. College, rent, wedding costs, business money, and every rescue after that. All together, roughly $440,000. Dad's mouth tightened. I turned one page. For me, about $8,000 over more than 10 years. Most of it birthday gifts, small transfers, and one medical loan of about $2,000 that I paid back. Mom looked down. That hurt more than her crying, because she knew. She had always known. Grant's thumb paused on my screen. "Miss Harper, do you have closing papers as well?" "Yes." I opened them. The sun was warm on my face. A neighbor's mower started somewhere down the street. That ordinary suburban buzz grinding under the ugliest moment of my life. I remember thinking how strange it was that the world did not stop when your own parents tried to take your house. Grant reviewed the papers. Dad kept shifting his weight. Impatient now, angry that the scene was no longer obeying him. "This is unnecessary," he said. "She is our daughter. We are not strangers off the street." "No," I said. "Strangers off the street would have had to break in. You just used the word family as a key." His face reddened. Mom's eyes filled again. "How can you be this cold?" I looked at her, really looked at her, at the woman who used to brush my hair too hard before school pictures, at the woman who smiled when Ethan brought home a C but told me my A- meant I was distracted, at the woman who had just nodded while a lawyer said she owned part of my home. "Cold?" I asked. "You stood behind Dad while he tried to turn my life into Ethan's emergency fund." "That is not fair," she said. "No. What is not fair is working myself sick for everything I have, then hearing my own mother say she paid for it." Dad pointed at the folder. "You kept records on your family. Do you hear how sick that sounds? I kept records because my family kept rewriting history." Grant closed my mortgage papers and handed the phone back. Then he closed his briefcase. The snap of the latch was so sharp it felt like a door slamming shut on 20 years of excuses. "I can't file this," he said. Dad stared at him. "Excuse me. I was retained based on your statement that you contributed financially to the purchase of this property. These records do not support that claim." Mom's lips parted. There must be some misunderstanding. Grant's voice stayed calm. "The misunderstanding appears to be between what I was told and what the documents show." I watched my father shrink by 1 inch. Not physically, worse. In authority, for the first time in my life. Someone in a suit had told Richard Harper no. Dad grabbed for control. "We raised her. We sacrificed for her." "You raised 2 children," I said. "One became a permanent rescue mission. The other became a savings account you thought you could raid." His eyes flashed. "Watch your mouth." "No, you watch your paperwork." He went silent. That was when I knew I had him. Not beaten. Exposed. I lifted my chin toward the small black camera above the porch light. "This entire conversation is recorded. If you or anyone acting for you continues to use false claims to pressure me into giving up my property, I will contact my own attorney. I will provide the records, the video, and every communication." Mom started crying harder. "You would do that to your parents. You did this to your daughter." The sentence hit the porch and stayed there. Even Grant looked away. Dad's hand curled around his papers. "You think this makes you powerful?" "No," I said. "It makes me finished." He blinked. "I am finished paying for Ethan's mistakes, finished shrinking so Mom can call it peace, finished pretending you love me when what you love is how little I ask for." Mom whispered my name. I shook my head. "No, not today." Grant turned to my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Harper. "I'll be in touch regarding withdrawal from this matter." Dad looked like he wanted to argue, but the ground had moved under him. He could yell at me. He could guilt me. He could call me ungrateful. But he could not make the numbers change. And he could not make Grant reopen that briefcase. For a few seconds. Nobody moved. Then Mom stepped backward first. Her heel caught on the porch mat, and Dad reached for her elbow. It was the same gesture he used at weddings, holidays, family photos, protective, tender. I wondered if he had ever held my arm like that. They walked to their car without another word. Grant gave me a quiet nod before following them down the path. When they were gone, I closed the door. The house settled around me, my blue house, my warm kitchen, my bills on the counter, my name on the mortgage. I wanted to feel victorious. Instead, I slid down against the door and sat on the floor, still holding the folder, because I had just proved my parents were lying. And somehow, I knew they would make me pay for telling the truth. For 3 weeks. My phone became a weapon they used from a distance. Ethan called first. "You really humiliated them," he said, like my parents had accidentally tripped in public instead of standing on my porch with a legal threat. I was in my living room, barefoot, still surrounded by the soft yellow light of the lamp I bought after my first promotion. "No," I said. "I stopped them from taking my house to fix your mess." He went quiet. Then came the old excuse. It was just investing gone wrong. "Family help is bringing dinner when someone is sick," I said. "It is not turning your sister's home into collateral." He hung up. 2 weeks later, another letter arrived. Different lawyer, softer language, same hunger. They claimed years of family support gave them a right to repayment. Not the house this time, but money, a settlement, a way to make me bleed without calling it theft. I stared at that letter for a long time. Then I called Naomi Reed. She was the kind of attorney who did not waste words. Gray suit, sharp eyes, voice calm enough to make panic feel embarrassed. She read my records at her desk while I sat across from her, hands folded so tightly my knuckles ached. When she finished, she looked up and said, "Layla, they do not own your house. They do not own your income, and they do not own you." I almost cried right there. Naomi sent one letter, just one. It laid out the records, the false claim, the porch camera, and the consequences of continuing to pressure me with information they knew was not true. By Friday, their lawyer withdrew. No apology from my parents. Of course not, but silence, for once, was enough. 3 months later, Ethan called again, this time. His voice was different, smaller, clean around the edges. "I'm getting help," he said. "My counselor made me write down every time I asked Mom and Dad for money. I waited 43 times. He whispered, "You asked twice." I closed my eyes. "I knew they were going to pressure you," he said. I let them. "I'm sorry. I did not forgive him right then. Real life is not that neat." But I said, "Thank you for finally saying it." And for the first time, the truth did not feel lonely. Thanksgiving came with a short email from my parents. They said I could come home if I was ready to move past the unpleasantness. I deleted it. That night, I ate turkey with friends at my own table, inside my own blue house, while rain tapped softly against the windows. The folder stayed in my desk drawer. I did not keep it for revenge. I kept it to remember the truth saved me. Love is not ownership. Family is not a bill you pay with your freedom. If you have ever had to protect yourself from your own family, share your story in the comments. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next story.